I know I haven't talked much about Sonic Boom since first glossing over my earliest impressions of the game back when the first trailers were released, and there's a reason for that. I wanted to save my thoughts for the inevitable review of the game. Originally, I had intended for this review to be on the short side, since some people complained that my Sonic Lost World review was too long. When the time finally came to play it though, and even when just watching other people play it a couple of days before, it became difficult to sum up my thoughts in a few quick paragraphs. I ended up having a lot more to say about this game than I ever thought I would, and I want to share it all. I'm not going to do it all at once though. It took me 2 weeks to edit the Lost World review and I ended up making myself sick in the process. I don't want to make you guys wait long to finally hear my full thoughts on this game, but I can't be pressured to do it all at once like last year, so I'll be breaking down this whole thing one piece at a time. I'm still unable to record gameplay footage, so most of the footage you'll see featured in these videos was recorded by Rakib Marvelous. His videos are pretty good if you want to just see a game without commentary and with all the fails edited out for a quick painless viewing experience. The format of this review is going to be a lot like SF Debris' inspired review of Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic, or one of Spoonie's videos, and I'll expand on all the little things about this game I feel like talking about as we come to where they're introduced and become relevant. And while I'll touch upon these things as we go along, I'll give my ultimate evaluation on all of them in the final video. The main focus of this review will be the console version, Rise of Lyric, though I'll also be looking at the 3DS version, Shattered Crystal, now and then. I've only played the demo of Shattered Crystal and watched some of the later gameplay, but that was enough for me to see the differences and even find some things I prefer about that version over this one. I'll also be comparing Rise of Lyric to one other game, the original Jak and Daxter. I know this sounds like a pretty big leap, but this was developed by the same people who made that game, and for better or worse, it shows. I will say right now up front that I don't think Sonic Boom Rise of Lyric is a downright bad game. It's just a confused game. In fact, it's probably the most confused Sonic game I've seen yet. From one moment to the next, it just never quite seems to know what exactly it wants to be, so yeah, it'd be kinda hard to summarize all of my problems with it in a single video. Each one should be just a few minutes in length, like this one, and I hope they'll be easy enough to sit through. So let's begin. We open with a tutorial stage, as Sonic and friends are chasing Dr. Eggman on some track that leads to nowhere. Right after that, we start with an auto-run section. And it's as underwhelming as it looks. I have never liked this sort of gameplay. I feel it robs the player some of the control they should have, even in the case of the quick-stepping sections from Sonic Unleashed and Colors and so on, where you could at least make Sonic run. Now you just watch him go on his own and press a button to move him to the right or left or jump on occasion. The strange thing is, I know people who like this kind of gameplay. In fact, there's at least one guy who thinks Sonic Dash is basically how every Sonic game should play all the time. He says it's simple and easy to get the hang of, that it isn't bogged down by cumbersome gimmicks or bad controls like every other Sonic game, and gets right to the basics of what Sonic is all about. I disagree with this sentiment completely. And unfortunately, Sonic Dash is basically what this whole section, and several others like it sprinkled throughout the game, amount to. Trying to trim off all the fat of Sonic's gameplay like this just makes it so bare bones and boring and dumb. To be fair, they do mix it up a bit in later areas, and these are only the first few seconds of the game, and look at how long I've dialed here. Let's move on, we'll come back to this later. Once the actual gameplay starts, you should notice pretty quickly that the controls are, well, great. Turning, jumping, and all that stuff feels really tight and acute, and it's much easier to correct and save yourself than in, say, Lost World. Unfortunately, you're also really slow. Some would probably say that if Sonic and friends were faster, they'd become unwieldy and difficult to control, and that was probably the mindset the developers had when designing both of these gameplay styles, creating this weird dichotomy. This is something I've never really understood, this whole idea that you have to sacrifice that Sonic speed in order to have good controls in a 3D environment. I mean, look at how Sonic controls in the adventure games. It's just not true. In any case, it seems my fears from that first impressions video came true. These auto-run sections are just there to break up the otherwise very, very slow gameplay. But anyway, I can make a whole video just talking about that. So I will. We'll save that for later. Sonic's speed be damned, most of these slower segments are designed around it. There's some good platforming to be had here, and it's usually over pretty quickly, at least in 3D areas. Yeah, there's a third playstyle, 2D sections. These tend to be even slower than the 3D portions, and if there's one thing I can give them, it's that they are pretty intelligently designed most of the time. But are they really that fun? If you like pushing switches so you can run around and push more switches to unlock even more switches to push and unlock more switches, then yeah. That's not really fair, though. Only a couple of sections are like that. Anyway, things slow down to a crawl when Sonic and Co. are chased into a strange temple that only Sonic is able to open. When I saw this, I honestly worried that they were going to make Sonic some messiah figure or whatever. Thankfully, they don't. Inside, throughout this tutorial, yeah, it's still going on, you play as all 4 characters to get the hang of how they control. Sonic is the most basic of the bunch. He can go up ramps, spin dash into enemies, he has a homing attack, and he can open doors by doing this. There's not really anything special about him, though. Tails can shoot at enemies, deploy robots to break through security defenses, and glide. When you do this over an updraft, you're pushed higher and can glide further. Knuckles can tunnel underground to surprise enemies, climb on certain walls, and even cling to ceilings. Amy's playstyle is the most platform-heavy. She has a pretty generous triple jump and can latch onto pink rails and walk along them. Aside from that, all 4 characters play pretty much the same. To me, this was a wise decision. What made characters like Tails and Knuckles so fun to play as in Sonic 3K and to some extent even Sonic Adventure was that aside from a few tricks unique to them, such as how they attacked, they controlled and moved pretty much exactly like Sonic. And they were all fast. You didn't have to get used to a radically different gameplay style with off-putting mechanics every time you switch between them, like with characters such as, say, Big the Cat. When all the characters play consistently, the core gameplay can really shine. The keyword being can. I may as well take a moment to touch upon the character designs while I'm at it. Yeah, I know, it's nitpicking, me. I promise I'll make this quick. I like some things about them. I think Amy and Tails' attire is pretty nifty, and I think they translate into this new aesthetic the best. Knuckles has seen the most changes, though I actually like his design for the most part. I like the idea of him being more buff than the other characters, and Sonic characters having different body types in general. I do think they went a tad overboard though, especially with a sports tape. Sonic's design is nothing special. They've barely really changed anything about him, or Shadow for that matter, except making his arms blue and stretching him out with a taffy puller to make him even lankier than he already was. I guess they were trying to make him look like a Looney Tunes character like Bugs Bunny or something like that. I just have to wonder if they'll stop here, or keep making him taller until he someday looks almost like a human cosplaying as Sonic the Hedgehog. Whatever. Metal hasn't changed at all, and again he never has. I think it looks really cool in this game, of course, and I like his body language. There's just something really unnerving about the way he carries himself and directs his fellow robots, and it fits. Eggman's design took a little getting used to, but I actually quite like it. I can't really think of much else to say about it though. Let's see, who else? A snake with robot arms.
Big red button stole my ideas! Fuck this game!